Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Ask the Trainer Live. My name is Ellie and I'm part of the Max On training team. And today I'm joined by some very special people. We have a special theme for today's Ask the Trainer. We're going to be diving into all things to do with ZBrush. And so joining me today, I'm very pleased to say we have Anna Carolina, Ian and Paul from our lovely ZBrush family. How's it going, guys? How are we doing?
Hello. Hello.
We also have
Hello.
Hey everyone. We also have a couple members of our Max On training team. So we have myself, we have Chad, and we have Darren in the background answering your questions, and two very key people without who we would not be running this live show today. We have Hashi, who's producing, and we have Michelle, who is looking after the YouTube comments. So before I just thought I would dive into some events that are coming up and some workshops that we have. So for anyone who doesn't know, you can head over to the maxon.net events page, and here you can see all the great events that are coming up, us as a training team, as well as like a Maxon collective, and live events now. Now the world's opening up again, we have some live events going on. So just head over to this page and you can see all the stuff that's going on here. And there's some stuff that isn't on there. And you know me, I like to ruin surprises and tell you guys about what's coming up. As you know, every Monday we run a demystifying post-production series, and every month we change the topic. So this month we've been diving into Redshift. We're doing like a Redshift challenge. And so on Monday we're doing the final week of that. And then next month, so in June, myself, Chad, and Anna Carolina are going to be diving into like a whole range of Maxon tools. So we're going to be going from ZBrush to Cinema 4D to Redshift, then to Red Giant. And so I'm super excited for that. I cannot wait. And we also have, so very soon you'll be able to register for that. Maybe the next couple of days, I reckon you'll see that on this events page. And another thing coming up is a brand new hands-on with Maxon workshop. So we were going to be running the beginner's course again in June, but instead what we're doing is a kind of next step up. So a slightly more, maybe like an intermediate version. And we're calling it C4D Level Up. And so you guys, if you're interested in the beginner's course and you took that and now you want to kind of develop your skills and kind of go along that 3D journey, then very soon you'll be able to register for that workshop as well. So that'll be me and my good friend Matt will be running that together. And if you guys don't know, we actually have a Maxon Training Team YouTube channel, which is where you're watching this now. So you probably do know. And we actually record pretty much every single thing that we do, and we throw it on there for you guys to check out. And everything is timestamped as well, thanks to the amazing Dr. Safi, who I don't think is actually with us today. But hey, I think he's the guy that does all the timestamps, so we have to thank him on these sessions. So yeah, as you can see, everything is in its different playlists, whether it's Redshift, whether it's the demystifying post-production. So if you ever miss anything or you want to learn and teach yourself some stuff in a whole range of Maxon tools, then just head over to that YouTube channel. Cool. So kind of, that's enough rambling from me. We're here for a reason. We're here to learn about ZBrush and the lovely people that we have on this
that aren't familiar with ZBrush is, it's a sculpting tool that's going to allow you to create pretty much anything that you have in your mind. It's your world. Okay, so you just create whatever you want within ZBrush, and it's like I like to say starting with a ball of clay and thinking about it in that context, and then just turning it into whatever you want to turn it into. And ZBrush is used in many, many, many different ways. It's actually used in about 10 plus industries, I would say, at this point now, that It's really big parts of Python. So for the user watching, it's not just a tool that's used in film and games. It's used in collectibles. It's used in toys, medical world, whether it be illustration or even I've had conversations with some artists that are even doing designs of the stuff that's going in operating rooms. We're used in jewelry. We're used in aviation, automotive. So it's a great software to dive into and learn and just find different ways to use. So today, hopefully, Brush. So, and then especially now for those that have the Max on One subscription, you now have ZBrush. So, and then you have us to ask questions whenever you need. So, thank you for joining us. So, I'll hand it over to Ian to introduce himself.
Cool.
Awesome. Hello, my name is Ian Robinson. I am officially working as a ZBrush trainer at Maxon, and what I do, I am primarily a toy and statue sculptor. I've been sculpting for a little over 7 years now, which blows by really, really fast. And I love to teach, and I got into teaching a few years ago. So I like to start with the foundation of ZBrush and how ZBrush operates and functions so that new artists can jump in very quickly and very effectively so they don't feel overwhelmed by the UI or anything else. And I like to just break those processes down so that they're digestible. So sometimes the information will be very, very quick, but it'll be very simplistic. So that way, again, it's something that can be digested. So that's what I do. And yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for having us.
Cool, that sounds great. And yeah, Anna, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself before we dive into some questions?
Sure. My name is Ana Carolina Pereira. I am a Brazilian technical artist, VR developer, and character artist. I've always run multiple careers at the same time. Because why not, right? Right now, I am a college professor at the Ringling College of Art and Design, teaching all sorts of topics, including sculpture in ZBrush and things like that. I've been streaming ZBrush Live for like 4 years now, which feels unreal to me. And now I stream it every week, so you guys can come see me if you want to. But yeah, that's basically it for me.
Cool. Yeah. So as you guys can see, we have some amazing people on here with us, like artists and trainers, tutors, educators. So let us know in the comments what questions you have for them. We actually have got a question already. I know you guys have prepped something. I was wondering if I can ask this question first, and maybe we could kind of like dive straight in.
Let's go for it.
Let's go for it. So
Yeah.
we've got from Dwight Clark. What is the best training video that you have detailing the UV unwrapping process for ZBrush? And this is open to the three of you.
Well, the best video is this one right now because we're going to show it.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
before we dive into the question, everyone, please also know Anna Carolina is always streaming on zbrushlive.com. We have also, for those of you that are watching this, we have a channel that's live almost every single day where you can sit and be in like this with artists like Anna and be able to talk to her and learn from her as well. So it's another great way to learn ZBrush. So it's just zbrushlive.com. Anna, you go.
We'll link to that as well.
Yeah. When do you go again, Anna?
Sundays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time.
Right. And then Ian goes every Wednesday at noon Pacific time.
Yep.
Right.
Noon to 2. That's correct.
Yep. And then when I can, I go Fridays at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So just something else. All right. Who wants to take the UV question?
I'll take the UV question because there's definitely a lot of ways to do that. So
yep.
Let me come on in. Boop. Okay. So first off, a little bit of my work, just so you guys can see it. We're going to go ahead and clear this for a second. So there's first things first, too. I also like to point out before we get into this question that especially those who are new to ZBrush, we have a whole series on YouTube called Ask ZBrush. That's let's go ahead and pull up a like a whole character tool right here. Okay, so there's a few ways to go about this. But I'm going to show you the way that I like to. And the reason why I chose this is because we have a base mesh here that is already broken up into polygroups. And just real quick, for those of you who don't know, polygroups are just different selections that it's all tied to the same tool, but they're just different colored selections so that I could, with Control Shift and tap, I can make that selection. I can like isolate it and then from there work on that specific piece or even use that to mask. So the first thing I would say is, how do we make those polygroups? So let's grab these sections right here real fast just to demonstrate that. Come here, I'm going to hit Control W. That's going to make that all one polygroup. So really, what a good way to do it is to just go ahead and mask a selection by holding Control and masking a certain selection. If you would like to have a different type of masking brush, hold Control, and up here on the top left is our brush palette. And I'm going to pick Mask Lasso. I'm going to just mask this selection right here between these two edge loops, and then Control W will create a new polygroup. So you would want to do that for your whole character, and whichever makes sense for you, just break it up how. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to Geometry, and we're going to make sure that if we have subdivisions, we want to be on the lowest subdivision, or no subdivisions at all. So in this case, I'm working with a very low subdivision. From there, we're going to go up to Z plugin, and I'm going to dock this on the left-hand side. So I'm going to open up this palette here, close those. I'm going to go to Z plugin, and there's this little icon right here. Zoom in. We're going to grab that and drag that on over to the left. That's going to allow me to keep that menu open at all times. From there, we're going to go down to UV Master, and you can see here we have some options. So primarily, we have an unwrap and unwrap all. We have symmetry and polygroups, and then a few other features, but we won't dive into those just yet because we're going to be working with polygroups. So for this, my character is symmetrical, but I really want to focus on the polygroups. So if my character is symmetrical, I can leave symmetry turned on, but I want to turn on polygroups because now that's going to tell ZBrush, when you break this model up for UVs, look at all the different polygroups, and each time there's a polygroup change, treat that as a seam line. So we're going to go ahead and turn polygroups on, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit unwrap. And that's going to go ahead and unwrap my entire tool set. And then I'm sorry, not my tool set. I'm just going to wrap my subtool. If I hit unwrap all, it will unwrap everything within the scene. So you do want to be careful. You want to make sure if you're going to unwrap everything in your subtool palette, you want to make sure that it is all prepped for that. But we're just working with the one subtool, so we hit unwrap. From here, we can go ahead and check a few ways to see how that looks. So we can say flatten, and that's going to give me the entire UV layout. And I will be able to actually come in and edit this a little bit too. You can see here it gives me this floor plane. And with this floor plane, I can actually select everything. I can move it around. I can mask off certain sections and move that around. I can even scale this whole thing up and down if I would like to, just to fit it a little bit better in space. And once I'm satisfied with the organization of this UV, I can go ahead and hit unflatten, and it doesn't affect the breakdown at all. And that is actually one of the ways to unwrap UV Master, or unwrap UVs. Anybody would like to take a second way?
That was
Cool.
awesome. Thanks, Ian.
That was awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Ian. That's great. And yeah, thanks, Dwight, for that question.
Yes, thank you.
Cool. So just having a look through, we've had another question saying, in your experience as the amazing ZBrush artist that you are, what's the best way to master anatomy when it comes to sculpting?
Oh, okay. You guys are gonna love this. In ZBrush, there is actually an écrochet in ZBrush. So if you hit the comma key and open up our light box, and we go into Tool, we have this écrochet right here. It's called the Ryan Kingsley Anatomy. We click this.
Hey, Ian, what's that word that you're saying? Écrochet.
Écrochet.
What is that?
It's
Just in case someone doesn't know. I mean, I know obviously, but just for others that might not know.
So an écrochet is essentially a it's basically the anatomy breakdown, and it's usually like a model of some sort. Let me turn off solo for a second. So an écrochet is basically just showing the breakdown of an anatomy of an object. So you can have an animal écrochet of like a dog, cat, lion. You can have a human écrochet. It's just showing the muscle structure and how those muscles are connected more in depth. Some écrochets are very simplistic, where it's just showing the overall, like if you have some sort of like 3D print of it. Other écrochets, like the one in ZBrush here, we actually have all the muscles broken up into different subtools. So I can actually alt tap one muscle particular, like this bicep, and solo that out. And I can actually see how that bicep is connecting, what that looks like. So to learn anatomy, we actually have provided an écrochet here. And for the most part, male and female anatomy is very similar. There are some differences like skeletal changes and fat tissue changes, but for the most part, for just muscles, there are a lot of they're near identical. So you want to be able to just kind of you can come in here and look at how the lats and the deltoids and the triceps, biceps, brachialis, how all of that connects to the body. And then you could just go ahead and kind of pin this on the side. So let's say I want to focus on I just want to focus here on the head, for example. I could just zoom in here and see the facial muscle breakdown. And if I hit Shift S, that's actually going to create a stamp on my viewport. So then I can come back to my main character here, and I can look at what's going on and say, okay, yeah, I need to look at how this face is built, and I can start referencing that anatomy right there within the program. So I never have to leave the program if I would like to just study anatomy. And you could go through this whole tool set and just really break it down and really just see each piece, isolate that. So that's a really great way to learn anatomy.
May I add something?
Absolutely.
I definitely recommend, on top of using, this wonderful écrochet here to create your own, actually go bone by bone, muscle by muscle, internally to externally as you go as well, because that will teach you insane amounts that you might take for granted when you look at somebody else's écrochet, right? You'll teach you exactly where the muscles connect, what makes a bicep versus like a tricep, things like that. Whenever I teach écrochet making, I tell them that it's a secret that making an écrochet is actually ridiculously easy, because if you take it one muscle at a time, they're just like kind of ovals with like little heads, like that's it. And at the end, if you work long enough at it, you'll get this super complex looking model, as you can see on the screen. But actually, every little piece was super simple. And then you get to learn on top of all that, all the muscle names, where they attach, do they attach to bone, do they attach to what, right? So I definitely recommend making your own écrochet and doing some targeted studying as well. So be really honest with yourself and be like, what's my weak points? I don't like doing arms. Do I not like doing arms because I think arms are hard and I can never get them right? That means you have a weak point, and that's, in this case, arms. Target arms. Do them a bunch of times, study what they're supposed to be like. I always recommend a book called Anatomy for Sculptors. It's extremely expensive right now, but there's a bunch of free things that they've put on the internet, like on ArtStation and things like that. You can just Google it, and they break down the forms into like really understandable chunks that kind of abstracts from like the blood and guts of it all, so to speak. So I definitely recommend being very targeted with your studying as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's the best way to do it. Don't be scared. Just get in there and start making it. It's okay to fail too. That's one other thing I'd like to add. It's okay to fail. That's how we learn as artists. That's how we learn. That's how we learn anything, really. Anytime you try something new, it might seem scary and daunting, but if you just get in there and just start making something, and then from there comparing it to, like this écrochet, for example, seeing how it is, and then making your adjustments, and just trying it out, you're going to learn a lot just from those first few moments, and then those nerves go away, and now you're just creating. So don't be afraid to just get in there, break something, make it happen.
Oh yes, one more piece of advice. Is that okay? One more piece of advice is, when people are learning anatomy from écrochets and classes and things like that, you can often fall into a trap of like formula thinking where like you're memorizing like the face is this many eyes wide and this many eyes tall and these things like that, and you like kind of create the generic human face, which is normally just like a man, like a middle-aged man face. But when you're doing actual anatomy, you have to be open to the fact that genetics are wild. People come in every freaking shape, and you can't just take shortcuts. You actually have to learn how to observe, which is a whole other skill, right? To be able to see something and recreate it with accuracy is kind of what I call it, how I define observational skills. You have to actually be open to adding those variations to your work to make them look natural. And don't forget fat, because fat is a huge part of what makes the exterior of a human being and animals. And people always just study muscles and bones and they ignore fat. And it ends up with like always look, these are tense looking models, you know, that are always like, you know, no matter what they're doing, what pose they're in. So definitely look into those extra things as well.
Yeah, I want to add something too, if I may. I'm going to share my screen. I want to
do it.
Let's see. Okay, everyone good? See my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I definitely second what Anna and Ian's been saying too. I found as an instructor too, like Anna said, focus on just something simple. Like I said in the chat, like do just ears for an entire week. Do just hands for an entire week. And then look at the stuff that, like Anna said, that you're not comfortable with. Then that's what you should also be diving into as well. I made some suggestions to Scott Eaton is an amazing artist to go learn anatomy from. He's actually got an online class that you can take. Anatomy Tools with Andrew Cause that I shared. Amazing. I took his class and learned so much stuff like the Da Vinci 5-eye rule, which is amazing. And even though we're talking about anatomy in depth, I also think as an artist, I think you you only need to know the important parts that you should know as an artist, that are major bony landmarks and what makes a character that you're sculpting, right? So you don't like, I don't know everything about the anatomy in and out, but I can sculpt because I've learned just the important parts of the anatomy that is crucial to land the correct proportions and things like that. Okay, so one thing that I want to show also ZBrush wise that we did to try and help with this as well is a feature. So I just pulled up the same thing that Ian pulled up, the anatomy tool, and I've thrown a sphere in here. And I'm going to bleed into Ali, if it's okay. I see Joel's question about Cinema 4D people. How do they get started in ZBrush? So I'm going to bleed into that
sure.
after this one too.
Go for it.
Yeah. So something we did, and this is actually a feature request from an artist that literally was like this, hey, I'm working on a piece, i.e. an anatomy piece or something, or I have a 3D reference, and I want to use that 3D reference live inside of ZBrush while I'm sculpting. So we created a split screen ability. So if we go in our transform, we can actually split the screen into half. And now you can see on the right is actually what I'm going to be starting to sculpt with, as you can see. And then now I can turn and look 3D at my anatomy piece on the left side. And the reason why it's a slider is you guys can do it either top, bottom, right, left, whatever one is important to you, what you are more comfortable with. So that's all why it's a slider, is you might want to go from this way, sculpt at the bottom while looking at the top. So stuff like this is what we're also thinking about. We developed ZBrush in the sense of an artistic tool. So thinking about this, artists want to do this. They want to bring in a 3D reference that's a physical 3D and have it here. So, but there are artists using this for other things as well. Okay, and with that said, getting started, going back to what everybody was just saying, one of the best lessons that I've ever found that I've given my students is, ironically, an anatomy thing. It's sculpting a skull, but I only give them 15 minutes and that's it. Nothing else, right? So what it does is it forces them into stop trying to think about the software and think more about just becoming an artist, working with inside of ZBrush more than anything, right? And understanding that there are brushes that you're going to sculpt and we're pressure sensitive, so you will need a tablet is ideal. If you're using a mouse, you can. I learned ZBrush with a mouse, but I would never use a mouse. It's like sculpting with boxing gloves is the best way I would say it. So I would do this so that you can start learning, you can understand what the move brush is going to do for you, right? And then you're staying simple. It's easy to get references of a skull. Okay. And then this is how you'll start breaking down and learning things and taking stuff off in chunks. I think it's like that for any piece of software. You got to do things in pieces. Okay. And understanding, like, hey, when I start putting in my orbital bones here, the fact that you start getting this kind of thing happening to your geometry. This is why we make certain features and what we do, in all honesty. So there was a feature we have that's probably in Anna and Ian, and you could tell me otherwise. Dynamesh is probably the most popular feature inside of ZBrush, period. I think every single artist uses it that I've ever spoken to somewhere within their pipeline. Okay. And our goal is to develop something that kind of also takes down your barrier. So trying to learn something new, to me, especially something like ZBrush, and a person that's been teaching ZBrush now for 13 years, is taking in just a small bite, just only a small bite. Find something tiny to sculpt and work on that, and then go a little bit bigger. Like what I mean by tiny, do just maybe a head, then let me do a torso, a head and a torso. Okay, now let me do a full body, right? And do it in pieces. So you're building your way up to this. So as an example, this is how you'll start to learn stuff, because then you'll come to us and go, hey, whether you're going to talk to Anna, myself, or Ian, you're going to say, okay, this is happening and I don't get enough clay now. I don't have enough information here, and I need to start putting in more details to actually make a skull, and I can't. So this is where Dynamesh comes into play. Okay, and then this is where we can teach you, hey, here's what Dynamesh is going to do for you. You turn this on, and then now you're going to have more clay. And not only that, when you're sculpting, okay, we're retopologize in essence on the fly. So I'm going to turn on the polyframe. And as you can see, as I get really rough in here, this is totally breaking the anatomy now. Speaking of anatomy, okay, it's getting really jumbled in there. And our goal is, especially a lot of people that use ZBrush, they have never even used a 3D product. Forget coming from Cinema 4D. They're a person that's been using in wax or clay, or they're maybe even someone's from a whole nother world, like an AutoCAD world, right? So this is now, if I hold down the control key, click and drag, bam, we've got some nice new geometry there. So the goal of this feature is about keeping consistent clay, keeping consistently having the same quality in your clay. And then now I don't even need to talk to you really about the stuff that we don't want to talk about, which is polygons, vertex points, the technical part. It's more of relating the feature that makes sense to you then at that point as an artist. And this is what I mean by taking chunks of it off, Joel. So I would recommend thinking of something simple to go, even if it is like sculpting an ear, or like right now, this is a brutal skull. But then this is going to teach you how to switch brushes, how to navigate with inside of Z. Oh, and since I brought it up, we got to talk about navigation, because I am trying to change everyone's world. Ian and Anna, what navigation do you use?
So I'm split. I literally do right click and point drag sometime. I do both depending on what I'm at. So I more right click when I'm in somebody's, if I'm in like the anatomy is complete, like, or the sculpt itself is fully blown out, I'll do right click because it's easier. But sometimes it's I learned habit of touching the outside world and then just rotating around. So I'm split, Paul. I'm split.
Anna, which one do you use?
I basically just use I don't know, I want to say default, like the old one, which is like just kind of dragging on the background of your piece or outside of the edges.
Yeah.
And then like alt, click, drag to zoom, things like that.
Yeah, you're using the original. Yeah. There's actually 4 ways to navigate, by the way, people inside of ZBrush, and I'm trying to convert everybody to the right-click army, as our user base has been calling it now. Beautiful mandible. All right, so since I brought it up, just for those of you who don't know, I prefer right-click. I'm going to pull something up really quick. Sorry to manipulate the time, but I brought it up, so I definitely want to cover this. So there is 4 ways to navigate inside of ZBrush, just so you know. There is not the alt way that you're used to in Cinema 4D, because we use the Alt key for a lot of things, i.e. one of the big ones is if I'm adding clay, I want to take away clay, and the Alt key is actually the push in on the clay. And we use the Alt key in a lot of other places, okay? So the right-click navigation to me is the one you should probably learn. And I'm going to show you why I think it's the one you should use over any of the other three, okay? So why is I don't have to go to the highway to the safe zone. That's this area over here, okay? This is, I like to call it the safe zone, right through here. And reason why is the navigation that Anna is using, specifically if you're like this working on a sculpt, and if you want to rotate now, you have to come over here into the safe zone to rotate. Okay, if I want to zoom out, I got to come over here to the safe zone. Okay, so I don't prefer that, because if you notice, I don't ever go into the safe zone. So I'm actually saving time navigating now, because I'm not wasting time having to go over there. And as I'm sculpting, wherever I am having my cursor, that's where it's going to pivot. That's where I can zoom into. So for example, I want to zoom into the ear, I can zoom right into the ear. If I want to zoom out of the ear and then zoom into the nose, I can zoom into the nose, zoom into the eye, zoom out of the eye, right? So this is why I prefer the right-click navigation. So what I'm doing is I'm using my pen, this bottom part of the button. I don't know, I'm showing the camera right now. My pen is right-click by default. So I just hover over the tablet, hold right-click, and that rotates. And my cursor can be anywhere to do that. And then if I want to, in essence, pan or move, it's Alt key, then right click. There, okay. Alt key, then right click. And if I want to zoom, it's the Control key and right click. Okay. So for me, I prefer this method, but every artist is different. And then this is why we have different ways of working with inside of ZBrush. Okay. So Anna likes to use this way, or it's, zooming in. But as you can see, what I don't like about that, why I'm not as big as a component on that, is again the safe zone, and you have to do this and then often rearrange your model like this. And with the right click, I don't have to do that. So I prefer the right click personally. So I added in my own question. Sorry, it's just I said navigate. So I wanted. I don't know. Yeah,
Can
go
I jump
ahead.
in with a question since you're talking about your pen, Paul?
Yeah.
So are there any specific Wacom tablet properties that you customize for your workflow? Also interested in Ian and Anna's answer. Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I personally do is I convert the top part of this button on the pen to middle mouse. So even when I go into Cinema 4D or any other application, I actually still use the pen. I don't use the mouse that much. The pen is mightier than the sword. So because I'm just living in ZBrush so much, and it's a pressure sensitive application, I tend to keep my hand on the pen more than anything. So I've learned to, even in other applications, just use these buttons to be my navigators. So that's the only thing I customize for me personally in the Wacom side. Ian and I don't know what you guys customize.
So let me share my screen real quick, because I'll just share. If you do use a screen tablet like a Wacom or XP Pen, I use the pen primarily, and like what Paul was saying with the button. But something else too is, depending on the size of your Wacom, like I'm using a 24-inch screen version. Sometimes when you load ZBrush, the buttons themselves might be just a little bit too big, or some things might seem like it's cut off. So you'd want to actually make those adjustments. And so you can do that by going into preferences, and then you got to go into interface, and then UI, and there's this button size. And I change this button size to like between 40 and 46. And then when you change this, you'll restart ZBrush and the buttons will fit the tab a little bit better. So that's the other thing I do, just depending on the version or the tablet I'm working on. But if you're not working on a screen tablet, then you're just using a monitor, then I don't think you have to do anything else on that end. Anna, do you have anything?
So I'm a really basic tablet user. I like the basic settings. However, the things I do is like basically you got to watch out for lag, and there is often lag when you're using like a PC with a tablet. So make sure you go through the steps to get rid of that, normally by turning off like Windows Ink. So if you ever are like trying to move something in ZBrush and you notice that there's a tiny little lag right at the beginning of your stroke, there are tons of YouTube videos on how to fix that. It's basically in your PC settings. And then when it comes to my tablet options, I turn off all of the buttons on my pen. I tried doing the thing that Paul was just showing, and I realized that all my pen buttons are turned off because I keep clicking them on accident when I'm trying to sculpt. And then I turned pressure sensitivity like super high because I'm a really light-handed modeler. Like it'll take me like 100 strokes to do what probably Paul does in one. So I have to turn it way up so that I can like force the machine to make up for the fact that I'm just a really gentle sculptor. And those are the only things I change. Everything else is the same.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone.
Cool. Yeah, I know that was your question, wasn't it, Darren? And we've had another one, which I think you guys have actually been answering in the chat, but I thought it would be handy in case anyone else has this sort of question. It was from Zachary Garcia. As a new artist for ZBrush, I see that there are various ways to do hard surface modeling. I'd really appreciate knowing the workflows that you guys use to achieve it. And he's looking to get clean topology and hard surface on things like helmets and armor pieces for costume making and all that kind of stuff.
Want to go first, Anna?
Who's going to take it?
I might not be the best person to answer this one because my process for that in ZBrush is a little chaotic. I like to just bash things together in Boolean and make these really cool shapes, more so than keeping everything really clean and tidy, which seems to be what the person who's asking me wants. So I'll pass it on to the next person.
It's good to know, though. It's good to know that that's your workflow, especially with all of your experience, that is what you go for.
Yeah, I normally just reach out by hand to clean it up. And then,
I would add that's what ZBrush is also, everyone. Because I forgot the person that was asking. ZBrush has become a major tool for Zachary. Yes, thank you. A major tool for ZBrush. And what you might want to do is try breaking away from the same what you've been doing, because that's what we're about also, is you already have been maybe box modeling, as we call it, I guess, across the industry, right? With clean topology, edge looping and stuff. You can do that in ZBrush. And I'd be happy to show you that. And I'll show you a couple other techniques that you want. But a lot of the hard surface stuff that you might be even seeing in ZBrush is a little bit to what Anna is doing. Okay. And it's taking advantage of sculpting hard surface more than going down the rabbit hole of using edge looping and everything else. Okay. So, but we do have that ability. Okay. For sure. You can do that. And as a major hard surface person that's been pushing for us making hard surface, I'll pull up a couple models. This is completely done 100% in ZBrush. And in fact, there is a stream of me making this from beginning to end on the ZBrush YouTube channel. So you can go, there's a bunch of things that I made that's hard surface from beginning to end on the YouTube channel. And your question is a great question, but it's also, I use almost every technique hard surface. I use what Anna was talking about, and I use what you're asking for, which is clean topology. But I think if we show you a couple things, you'll see why Anna is saying the way she does it. Okay, so I'm going to go as fast as I possibly can here to show some really quick, a little bit of Zach, what you're looking for. Sorry, Zachary, you prefer Zachary. So clean topology wise, okay, we have a brush called Z Modeler. Okay, and this is what you're going to be used to, having edge loopability, polygoning, extrusions, and things like that. There's a menu for this, but this is very unique, and we took a different approach to it, i.e., you might consider this an extrude, but it's not an extrude. This is a Q mesh. Okay, so this is very different. Okay, and what I mean by that is if you have, say, something like this, I can actually pull on this one, and then boom, we actually delete faces, we weld edges, and vertex points on the fly for you. So this is actually all connected to the point if I was to divide this, you can see it's all one piece. If you're doing extrusion, that wouldn't happen. And not only that, I can use this to even delete, and now it's back to being separate pieces. So this is one unique thing. This is called the Z Modeler brush, and a lot of ZBrush artists are using this now. And not even that, you can take, for example, id Software, their most recent Doom game. Almost all of their, a large chunk of their hard surface was all done in ZBrush. So all the organic creatures and the armor and everything else was all done in ZBrush. And this is one of the tools that they use, is being able to do this. And then this is going to allow you to insert edge loops. Okay, I can pull on the faces. I can take the point. So everything's live. This is the difference. It's not component selecting by going and selecting component. All three components are alive at all time, and we're using a hover state instead. So as I hover over an edge, you'll see it says must insert an edge loop, right? And if I hover over a face, it's now a face. I hover over an edge, it's now an edge. And then there are other things here that we can do like this. Change polygroups on the fly, these little color things we call polygroups. Then I can start using this as my benefit. See, and I can pull out and push in those faces on the fly. You can do what you're used to, selecting things, a face like that, right? And I can pull on a single face. So this is something probably a little bit you're used to, okay? And then one other one that I like to show you just for your question that you were asking. Let me turn this off, and I'm going to switch to a different brush. And so here's a brush, especially since she brought up armor, okay? So I can start, in essence, just drawing out my topology lines that I want to have. So let's say I want to make a shoulder plate for this guy, and then now I can just start drawing lines. And as I'm drawing, see, it's going to start making the topology on the fly for me. So now as I'm crossing over these loops, I'm getting geometry to be built, and I can come across, and then at any time I can keep adding more loops. And if I'm happy with what I got, I just click, and then there is my nice new topology. And then I can split it, okay? And then now this is, again, a user now might go, well, now let me switch back to the Z Modeler brush, and let me use these together and start actually making a little bit of a difference in what we're looking at, and start making a different look armor. And obviously, when we're in the world of ZBrush, you're going to start sculpting at some point. So you're going to divide up in things. So we got to look at what's it look like divided, so we can start playing with settings. And this is actually what we call dynamic subdivisions. So it's actually not dividing the mesh. It's actually keeping the mesh at a very low number. It's only 224 polygons right now. But what I'm showing you is thousands of polygons. So it's dynamically showing you from divisions what it would look like. And I'm saying show me 4 divisions. So I can show me 1, show me 2, show me 4, show me 5. So this is a very popular feature with low polygon modeling, right? But to Anna's point, I'm telling you right now, one of the game changers for every artist that does hard surface in ZBrush is what Anna brought up, live booleans. Okay, and to give you an example, right? We're talking about low polygon modeling, keeping clean topology. It's really not that important in the sense of when you're making this, because we have things that allow you to clean up the topology. Even obviously with ZRemesher, right? One click, you can clean up your topology in one click. So the reason why I really love live booleans is this. I'm going to grab this, and then now I can say, well, let me just put that. Boom. Right? I'm never going to be able to make that polygonal wise, low polygon, as fast as I'm doing this right now. It's just, no, and it's not going to happen. So this is what we're about, is figuring out ways to change the way you're doing things, right? And looking at it in a different context and a different way of working. And this is just going to open up so many doors if you also take the challenge of, hey, let me go play in ZBrush and figure out different ways that I can make hard surface to me, this is a game changer for me. This was like, yes, I have something that I really like to do. And what I'm doing is just drawing out meshes, literally as a separate mesh subtool, we call them. And because I'm using live Boolean, it's actually giving me the result as if its Booleans are live. So this cube, nothing's changing on the cube at all. Everything's actually happening here. So this is a separate mesh that's then being Booleaned into the cube, right? And this is huge. Because like I said, I can continue manipulating and moving these around even if I want to, right? I can look at just the context of, hey, I just want to even play with just this again and move this around again. So this opens up a whole nother world. So
I'll stop question on this. Yeah. Would this work the same if you had like a curved object that you're, instead of like the key, for example?
Yep. Yeah. I do it on curved objects. A lot of times I'll use curved things, to give just a quick, I want to let Ian and Anna jump into if they want to. So as an example, something even curved out here, I'll show you another thing. It's just fun to see is if I like even do something like this. Okay. And I'm going to bring in something else now too. I'm going to bring in even another brush. So I'm going to bring in something like this. Let's do this one, I guess. And I'm going to tell it to take those colorful polygroups, right, and use them as a way to add a curve. And then I can tap and then see I can get geometry along the curve and then say I want to make it smaller. Say that's good. So this is going to follow the curve of the surface. And then I can actually split these off and then turn that into a negative. And then boom, you've got scribe lines instantly.
Yep.
Right. So this is what I'm saying. Like live Booleans is a huge, massive. And then, yeah, you can take those pieces, same thing I was doing, and have them actually stretch across the surface as well. So I Ian and Anna want to add anything on this?
Yeah, I got something too that's a little bit more of a sculptural approach. So let me share my screen. Let me know if you guys can do. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Cool. So there's also some other tools too, especially we had somebody asked about like shoulder pads, for example. So a really good way too is utilizing the extract method and a couple new brushes that were added, I believe, in 2021, which are mesh project, mesh
I like
extract.
To work a lot. I like
so
to
I'm going to hold control, go
rehearse.
to brush.
I'm like you. I like to research. I like to know. And
but we have.
I think I've been guilty in the past of that being a little bit of a ball and chain.
And let's say I have this guy and I'm tasked to making a spacesuit of some sort. So I want to start out with blocking like, oh, you need some shoulder pads. So I'm just going to hold control and start basically drawing out the shape on the mesh.
I like to work a lot. I like to
saying like
rehearse. I'm like you. I like to research. I like to know.
Layers. Let me cancel this.
I think I've been guilty in the past of that being a little bit of a ball and chain.
So without layers of geometry added, let's go ahead and just start drawing on that shape. And then that's going to help add in some more surface. Now, it's pretty big right here, so we actually want to drop the intensity. Hit Control Z and drop the intensity on that just a little bit.
I like to work a lot.
But you can start drawing out these shapes really quickly.
I'm like you. I like to research. I like to know.
And you think will actually start making up that suit. And then you can combine this with that method that Paul was talking about, where he's putting in other features with live Boolean and cutting in those shapes pretty quickly. So you can have something that you can draw out and drag. The other thing you can do too, so let's actually back this up just a bit. Let's go to Control Z, is we have an extract method. So if we want to make a full body suit, what I can do is under subtool, we have an extract. So if I mask out, so let's change back to like mask lasso. I'm just going to go ahead and maybe mask off his hands and mask off his head. And now just his whole body's masked. I'm going to go ahead and hold Control Shift, tap on the mask to sharpen it. And now I just come here to extract, turn on my magnifying glass. And what I can do, especially if you're trying to get cleaner topology, is I can change this thickness to either have something really thick or be a single-sided geometry. So if I hit 0 on the thickness and then say extract, it's now going to provide me a duplicate of this body mesh. And then if I hit accept, it's going to drop it into a second subtool that now if we isolate, I have this bodysuit that I can work on. And you can see here, it just mimicked the topology that I had already on my mesh above. So if you have really clean topology, you could just duplicate that over. And then from there, we could do exactly what Paul was talking about, which is going up and getting a different, oh, I have a presentation thing up here. Okay, there it goes. We can go up to our stroke and we can isolate under curve functions, just those polygroups, and frame that mesh. And now we could pick up, you know, an IMM brush, let's say curve alpha, why not? And we can just go ahead and tap one time, and that could start presenting, you know, some more different, different shapes inside. So you can get something really quick, really blocked out fast. So that way you're just creating. So that's another way that I do it, just especially when I'm trying to get like suits and stuff. And then combined with live Boolean, the possibilities are endless.
Cool, that's great. Yeah, and sorry guys about there was a minor audio issue, but yeah, apparently it was Anne Hathaway. So you know, she always loves to mess with our streams. Yeah, can't get rid of her sometimes. But yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for going through that. Anna, did you have anything you wanted to go dive into, or I know we've got a little bit of time left.
Not necessarily. Paul and Ian covered it during my NAB presentation. I actually went over how to use Booleans for organic purposes, specifically to kind of create the mouth cavity. So they are extremely versatile, and I think they're one of the best features of ZBrush. So I definitely recommend using it, you know, in any creative way you can think of. You know, Armor is just the beginning, I'd say.
Cool, that's perfect. That's great to know. So, yeah. Sina was wondering, my curve. Yeah, what you thinking?
No, because there was involving to what Ian was showing. They're asking, can it work with alphas? Yes, absolutely, it can work with alphas, and there's multiple ways to use alpha for hard surface. 100%, yes. People make brushes that have alphas, and that feature that Ian was showing, you can actually just grab an alpha and draw it out, and it'll actually form to the surface based upon the alpha as well. Sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to make sure I answered.
No, I missed that. So no, thanks. So Sina was wondering, my curve doesn't snap to the object correctly. Can you tell me why and how to fix it? I've tested the depth.
Well, I'm gonna show. let me share my screen real quick because. So let's back this up for just a second. Boop 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 boop. So, kind of interpreting the question a little bit, I'm assuming the question is referring to like when you draw out a curve, it's not exactly snapping completely to the surface as they would like. So there are a few really cool features that I like to point out. So let me grab a curve multi-tube brush. And so one of the things that is really neat is there's this little menu up here called Picker. And Picker is really fascinating. I'm going to dock this on the left-hand side. But Picker is really fascinating because every brush utilizes this menu. And if you're trying to get something that perfectly snaps to the surface, and you've tried adjusting your stroke and you've tried adjusting the depth, a thing to look at is actually under Picker, when you have your brush, you have a couple buttons. You have once Z, continuous Z, closest Z, and furthest Z. And what this is basically saying is that when you start to draw, the Picker is going to take into account what it's looking at, and then it's going to say, oh, we need to snap the surface. So 1C, for example, as soon as I click one time and I start drawing, that's the one point of contact that this brush is looking at. So when I let go, it's now the rest of that geometry is kind of floating off in space. But if I go to continuous Z and I start to draw out, it's now looking at every spot of the mesh I click. So it's now able to really snap to the surface. No matter where I draw on that mesh, as messy as this is, it's going to snap to that surface constantly because it's continuously looking at where my point of contact is, where instead it was defaulted at 1C. So if you would like to kind of move away from this, like I really need this to snap around the surface, go up to picker, continue with Z, and start having that. And then of course you can live boolean that as well.
Yeah, I would show them it also could be the snap feature in Stroke.
Oh yeah,
as well. They don't have that turned on, so show that one too.
This one right here?
No, in the Stroke palette, the actual snap
yes.
in curve.
Yes.
The actual button itself.
So let's dock that one. So with the snap function, where was that? That's curve function. No,
curve. No, curve.
There it is. Sorry, yes.
There you go.
Okay, so we have a few features up here. So we have curve step, we have curve mode, we have bin start. We have a lot of different control. Repel off is one. We have lock start. So there's a lot of little features here. So with snap turned on, is that correct, Paul? Paul, do you actually? I apologize. Can I pass this one to you?
Yeah, that one's for snapping to the surface. That's what that is for, a snap to the surface when the curve's being moved and edited so that it'll actually snap to the surface. So it could be that, or the other problem maybe could be you have stored undo on a different model because the curves actually look at the undo history. So that could also be what you're running. So what Ian showed is the way, in essence, the guts of the brushes, right? That can on once Z and continuous Z. Then there's features that also tell, like for example, curve mode has a snap feature to it. So I would double check that. And then the other thing is make sure you don't have a stored undo because the curves are going to appreciate the undo history. And you would know that because your undo would have a red marker. I can show that just so because I feel it's probably something that they're running into.
Okay, yeah.
So
absolutely.
To just in case doing a little technical thing here, I'm just going to load him. Okay, so when you're sculpting and moving along and doing things here, okay, and as you're sculpting, this is your undo history up here. Okay, and there's a lot of things we do with the undo history, and one of them is using it with curves. So there's going to be ways where the curve can actually look at a different model. Okay, and so for example, if I hold down Control key and I click on this undo, okay, you'll see now it has a gray marker tone. So this is now a stored undo that ZBrush look at for several features, and one of them is the curve mode. Okay, so for example, if I was to switch to the shirt, okay, and now I'm gonna divide up, and just do, so you can see there's now a red indicator here. This is telling you that there is an undo on a different model. Okay, and so when you go to use something like a curve brush, any of the curve brushes, this curve is now trying to look at the actual demo soldier, not the shirt as much. It's going to look at both. So as I start going, especially if I switch to the curves tube snap, it's going to start wanting to look also at that little marker right there. So I would double check that as well. And to get rid of it, all you do is hold down Control, go to this orange is your most recent undo, click there, do it again, and then see it's gone. So I remade an undo on this model now, and then I turned it off. So wherever you're at, you can make an undo marker, and then to get rid of it, you hold Control and click on it again, and it'll be gone. So I would look at that as well. That could be a possibility that you're running into something like that as well.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that, both of you. So yeah, moving on, we had a question about references, and I know you guys are replying in the chat as well. And how much time do you spend finding references? And I'm slightly going to adapt this to keep that question, but also where do you go to find? Like, do you have like a go-to place for references from your knowledge?
Google, ArtStation.
Yeah. Like when I'm doing human anatomy, I love using 3D scans, or at least screenshots of 3D scans. There's like Anatomy 360 online. They have a bunch of free references you can use. Sketchfab has some 3D scans of just about everything, skulls of animals and people and people in poses and things like that, clothes. I just really like scans because you can see them from all angles. But yeah, Google and Pinterest are also great. Pinterest is a little annoying, but it works, you know? Everything's so low resolution on Pinterest, but
that's the only downside to Pinterest. I have like a board for literally like everything going on in my life.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's what Pinterest is so powerful, having boards, but you know, a lot of times too, just for references, you know, I'll just like if I'm gonna make a, you know, like a space suit for like, you know, like a NASA spacesuit. A lot of times Google's just your best friend because you could quickly just see what that looks like. Because again, we're just using it for reference to get an idea, and there's different ways to do it. You know, there's different types of reference you can find. There's different suit textures. So it's very powerful to just quickly Google search something. But looking at other artists' interpretations and seeing what has been done is helpful as well, because you'll be able to kind of, you know, see those possibilities and know that it's like, oh, that's how they did it. Or, you know, when you come here to, you know, to watch any of us live, asking those questions and showcasing those different steps is also a great way to you know, gather that information. So lots of ways to find reference. And
I would say there's some. Oh, I'm sorry, Paul. Please go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I would say there are some best practices that I employ and I teach for gathering references. And one of the main things that I personally don't recommend doing is if you're trying to recreate something from real life, try to avoid using other artists' interpretation of that thing, right? Because no matter how hyper realistic somebody makes a thing, it's still an abstraction of your life. So there's the abstraction, and now you're using their abstraction to make your abstraction. It's twice as abstracted. Every mistake they made, you're going to make if you're using their work as reference, right? So like even down to using like somebody else's like écorché that they made, or face sculpt, or whatever it is that you're making. Like just be careful to not employ other artists' mistakes into your own arts. Unless you really like them and you're like, oh, I really like the way this person messed up the shoulder there. I'm going to do that too.
The real thing is the best thing, for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I put a link to Scott Eaton's Body in Motion website. Amazing reference if you're trying to learn anatomy. That's one of the best, because he just made videos of people moving in motion, and you can see how the anatomy moves. That's a great reference piece that I'll look at, especially when I start posing something. Really good one. But I'm old school. I'm a big art book collector, i.e. like movies, how it's made. Because even though Google's amazing, I can't go, I'm roadblocked right now. I don't even know what I want to look for. Right. So a lot of times I'll just pick some art books off, especially like, you know, I'm wrapping my head around, say I'm making some sci-fi ship. I'll pull off some of my sci-fi ship books from like Aliens and Alien and Elysium, and I'll just flip through, and then my juices will start flowing. Then I start looking at it, and then I go, oh, this would be great. And then I'll maybe go look at some real reference, i.e. if I'm going to do some kind of jet, I would go look at a jet and get the actual we are making them in real life. So, and see how that's moving, see how that's working. So the question came up to how long do we spend on reference? I spend quite a bit of time. I want to really dive deep to the point, like when I'm working on Star Wars, I literally just put all the Star Wars movies on in a TV in my office. I'm not watching it. It's just there. When I'm doing Transformers, I throw the Transformer movie on. The original. Okay. When I say that, the 80s movie. Okay. But I will play the other ones too. I see you laughing, Chad. I see where you're at right now. I like it.
Yeah.
So
I did a project a little while ago that involved a lot of weapon making, a lot of swords and knives and shields. So I actually fell in love with that show Forged in Fire, and watching blacksmiths create these items was really inspiring to then go and make it. So a lot of times, like if I'm going to make a katana, for example, like I did for my Demon Slayer fan art statue, I just like watched a bunch of blacksmiths make katanas, and then I tried to replicate that in ZBrush as much as I could, because it was like, well, like Paul was saying, it's already made in real life, so you know, go watch that.
I need to step up my game. I'm just watching like Selling Sunset or something when I was sculpting.
I think you'll love Forged in Fire. That's a good
one. Hey,
nothing wrong with Selling Sunset. Nothing wrong with it.
Oh, it's reached the UK, has it? Wow.
Oh yeah, Netflix. We're definitely off on a tangent, but I watch it on Netflix.
Yeah, well, that's where it's at. Yeah, it's Netflix. I didn't know if they were showing it though in the UK. But to Anna's point, honestly, that is also a good thing. You know, sometimes as artists, we get so in our heads. You got to go. I like to say, just go watch something that just makes me whatever in the world, numb to the world, and just watch something that has no sense, no silliness, and just go back then to the artwork, and then I'll have a fresh eye, fresh mind on it too. So.
Yeah, I do that too in like cinema and Redshift. If I spend so much time on something, I end up just kind of like either hating it or being like, oh, I'm not really in the mood. So yeah, go and watch a bit of TV, get a bit of fresh air.
Yeah, you're going down the rabbit hole with Alice, okay? And you're late. Don't go down that rabbit hole, okay? Or I like to say mucking up the sculpt or dirtying the sculpt. If you ever sculpting something for 4 hours and nothing's really changed, walk away. Just put the pen down, go watch a movie, go do something else, go outside, go whatever, and come back, and I guarantee you your eyes will pop up and go, oh my God, how did I not see this? And then you'll get in, you'll see your problem.
I do that thing where I post and then I see something immediately after I post it. I'm like, oh, this thing is awesome. I post it and I'm like, what did I do that for? So I do that too sometimes.
Oh, yeah. The ability to walk away, art few of us have mastered. Definitely something I talk about a lot in my mentorships. I'm like, just stop, please. Once you're making so much lateral progress, where you're just changing it and not improving it, it's time to walk away for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely some great advice there. Yeah, for sure. So I know we already kind of touched on this and talking about kind of ZBrush tutorials at the start, but Jay was wondering, do you guys have any suggestions for what you would say is a best intro to ZBrush? So for someone who's never even kind of maybe picked up the pen before.
I put one in the chat. Okay. That's a great one on our Z room. It's a series. They're all short. They're like under 10 minutes, all of them, done by Solomon that used to work with us. So he's literally making some little shark dude. So I put it in the chat so you can have a link to that. That's a great one to start with. It's just super simple, super what is ZBrush? What is the edit mode? How do I select the brush kind of world? That'd be a great start. I don't know if maybe. And then a great start to would be going to Anna's mentorships. She has her own online mentorships that she brought up just now. You can actually have conversations with Anna. And there you go.
I have one spot. Only one spot. If you want to join.
There you go.
Go right now.
There's going to be a mad rush now.
Yep. Go. To kind of piggyback off of Paul for a second too, a thing I would like is more of advice. Just when you start in ZBrush, feel free to just play with some of the brushes too. We have a huge brush palette. I'm going to share my screen just for a second. So when you start in ZBrush, and we'll just kind of go to the beginning. So when you start in ZBrush, you usually have just like this little tool set here, and you grab a cube, you draw it out. Then you want to come up to edit mode, and then you want to come up to make Polymesh 3D to start sculpting. But what I recommend is that a lot of new artists just open up this brush palette and just grab something. It doesn't matter, like polish brush, and just start seeing what that does. And if it doesn't do anything, maybe the mesh is too low, subdivide up, try it again. Okay, that kind of does something. And just familiarize yourself with these. You don't have to try to come in and start making a human head right out the gate. Grab the clay brush. What does that do? I encourage new beginners to just kind of break the program and just get a feel for it, because for me it's like when I used to draw, a blank white sheet of paper was the most intimidating thing on the planet. But as soon as I scribbled on it, I felt a whole lot better. So come in here, just start grabbing some stuff. The main brushes I like to use is the Move brush, just start moving shapes around, get something on there. The clay buildup, which is BCB, and then that just starts building a clay. So just a few of those brushes will take you very, very far. So just get in there and play. That's a good way to go.
Cool. Yeah. So we've had. Oh, sorry, Anna, you go.
Oh no, I was just like, I like that. Like kind of making your first day a judgment-free zone. Just mess up this cube.
Yeah, I think that's what kind of like scares people the most, isn't it? Kind of just, especially with like any software, it being such like a huge thing to learn, whether it's ZBrush or Cinema or Redshift. But the best thing you can do is to just start and do it and not look at what everyone else is doing or look at like the stuff that you're necessarily creating and being like, hey, I don't really like this. It's just about learning the tools, and then each and every day we're getting better and better.
Yep. Art is a journey. Starts here. Just work your way.
I like that. So a quick question we've had in just now is about the link between C4D and ZBrush. And I was wondering if you guys could talk about GoZ a little bit for the people watching.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start since I'm already sharing my screen. So the link for getting into Cinema 4D is this GoZ button. And when you want to send something on over, you have a few options. GoZ, if you just click that one time, that's going to go ahead and send over a single subtool on over to Cinema 4D. And then you have all, which will send all your subtools within that, within your selection on over. And then visible, of course, if it's visible to the viewport, then it will send on over. So when you're first setting it up, you might be prompted to install a few directories. But once that's done, you just go ahead and click all. And like I'm going to send over this sculpt. And then if Cinema 4D is not open, like mine is not currently open, it's starting to open up right now. And it's probably going to open up on another monitor. So as soon as it loads, I'll propagate that on over. Boop, boop. It's taking a second.
I like your sound effects, by the way, Ian. I do them a lot, as does Chad, who is in the background here as well. And I'm totally here for these boop boop sound effects. Boop, boop. It makes me feel good that other people do them too.
Yeah, it's. I started doing them when I was like, "Here's that awkward silence. Let me do something."
Yeah, and it's like half a second of silence, but I can't hack it.
Exactly. Yeah, and as you can see here, so everything got brought over from ZBrush on over to into Cinema 4D, and it even propagated my my naming convention. So try not to look at that right now because I did not do that well with this project. But everything is here. And it even, assigns some materials to it. So you can get started. That's the quickest way to get into it.
And you can send from Cinema to ZBrush. If you go under the extensions, you'll be able to have the GoZ there, and you can export. GoZ export will send everything back to ZBrush. So it's about going back and forth seamlessly with one button solution, in essence.
Yep.
So you can make changes to your meshes here and send it back to ZBrush, and everything will update in ZBrush, and vice versa. You go to ZBrush, make some changes, send it again back to Cinema 4D, and then it'll all update in Cinema 4D.
Yep, absolutely.
That's going to be the fastest and easiest way. And of course, you can use an FBX if you want to, OBJs, STLs, but GoZ is going to be your fastest way to go.
Cool. So I've had a couple more questions. I know we're about over time. I was thinking maybe we'll do a couple more. And then if you had like a place where people can come and ask you questions, we could talk about that at the very end. But I just had one in saying, do you have suggestions for sculpting short hair for a male character or regular straight one, semi-realistic? Most of the tutorials I found on YouTube are for females.
I am literally making a video on that right now, but it's not done yet. So
that's good to know, though. So here you go. Very soon, or maybe soon. Maybe I've just lied. there will be a demo for you.
Where are they going to be able to find it, so they know?
Probably on my YouTube. But if they follow me on social media, they'll get a little update whenever it's out.
What are your social media handles or YouTubes? Feel free to say them. We can then link them so everyone has that.
I'm Anna Carolina _arts on literally everything. Everything. I try to be consistent. But I just use the mask or the Curve Alpha brush and then the formers. That is it, literally.
There's actually
people. Oh wait, no, you go, Paul. We love to interrupt each other.
There's quite a few techniques actually for that. It's sometimes it's just brute sculpting, grabbing a sphere. All right, I might as well just. There's a lot of techniques, but I would say definitely when Anna's got her video done, I would go over there and take a look at that as well, so you can have that workflow down. I'm gonna show. So really. Short hair stuff, there's going to be a lot of ways. It all really comes down to what you're planning to output to. Okay, and what I mean by that is, am I doing it as a collectible? That's going to be 3D printed, because then that's a different type of hair. You need to be physically, done. There we go, and we're done. Right, so, but you got to think of that. Some people will just use, another piece of geometry like I am here. Right, and then just start quickly shaping it with the move brush. And again, working in symmetry, I can start just moving around. It's about keeping the topology relatively low as well, so you can start just working on it and start pushing this around where you want it to be, what kind of hairstyle you're looking for, right? Like even on this head, it was sculpted by Ryan. He sculpted that hair. And so that's kind of the route that you start going. So this is the one thing I'd recommend. Instead of trying to do it on the mesh that you're trying to work on, grab something else, because then you got freedom to conform this any way you want, right? And reference is king. So finding some reference of some hair, and then at this point, this is where maybe I'll take this and go, okay, I've got at least the base here, and being very simple now, using just a couple brushes, I am once again going to turn on that handy dandy Dynamesh feature, because I know I'm going to start destroying this. I personally like using the clay buildup brush to start just putting in some major, and look at it in chunks. Think about it. When I talk about hair, honestly, too, I look what a hairdresser does. They don't just go, okay, this is not Blade Runner. Okay, they don't just put a little thing over our heads and go, boop, press a button and our hair is done. Right? They got to take it in chunks and cut it in chunks and working it in chunks. So think about it in that sense as well. I'm just going to first just start laying down some major flow that I want to have in this hair, and start looking at what I can start breaking up. And again, it's just about pulling that parts in. This is why I like using another piece of geometry, right? So I can really start to do the flow that I want to start having in the hair. Okay. And if you've got to obviously get a good reference. I'm not looking at any reference right now except for myself. Okay. So I got a mirror in front of me. So here we go. Right. So doing large pieces like this would be the thing. And then you're going to start building up from there. Okay. So I like to use the clay buildup. Then I like to switch to Damien Standard. And this is where I'll start now really refining a little bit more and start making that feel a little bit more hair-like. And then now this is the point where I don't have enough clay right now to host and give the hair look that I really want, right? So in essence, there's not enough clay in here right now happening. So I need more clay. So this is where you might switch to something like out of Dynamesh and then use that handy dandy Z remesher and remesh this. So I can get now, and this is why I say you put the flow down, because then your topology is going to start following that flow then, right? And that's the point of Z remesher too. I'm getting geometry flowing with the hair now that I want, okay? And then now this is when I can start dividing up. In essence, we call this dividing. So I'm adding more topology. So we got subdivision levels. So now I've got much more dense topology. And then now I go into the next phase of really now refining and really start making some of this look like hair and finding, old Bob, there, happy little accidents, right, will start happening. And this is a sculptural way, I would say. And honestly, I live in 3 brushes for me, for the most part, not always. Damien Standard for 100%. That's what I'm using right now, the Dame Standard. And then that clay build-up brush is like my go-tos for hair a lot. And you can see as you start working, you'll start getting that look. But obviously, we don't have time for me to do the whole thing. But blocking out, he's one of the Beatles. Blocking it out is important as well. But like I said, there are a lot of techniques to do this. I can go on and on. I probably got to stop talking because I like to talk too much. But we also have, you can just use masking and start doing stuff with this right through here. And then we have things like something like a fiber mesh that you could also use to use preview. Yes, he's a rock star, right? And then you can adjust all this as well on the fly. I can make it be wider hair if I want to. And of course, there's ways to work in this, okay? And then, like Anna said, she had mentioned, there's these brushes that you literally, when you draw it, it'll start looking like hair in chunks, right? And then this brush has certain things turned on to make it actually be a little bit more like hair-like. Okay, so you would work in little, I love to work with these brushes to start laying down some nice little strips of hair to go through here. So I'll add even sometimes this with the blocking out sculpted version that I started with. And I've even found a cool little nano mesh way of doing this, but I don't want to take up too much time. But if you want, you can just email me and I can send you some stuff. So I can share my email in the chat. So I'll let someone else have the screen. Awkward silence.
Yeah, I think I was just like, I think that pretty much covers it. Hair is, there's so many ways to do hair. So yeah, I mean, we could talk about that all day long and never repeat ourselves. So I definitely think I like those methods. Again, I'm sculptural too, so I tend to just block out all my shapes. I work within groups, and then from there I start refining. For me, hair, I'm a perfectionist. So if I spend 8 hours on hair and it looks great, I don't rush the process. I treat, especially with character design, I treat hair like its own character because it has its own body language. So look up references and see how hair flows. Hair interacts with itself. It crosses through and folds and knots. So there's so many ways to do hair. And even though there's a lot of tutorials online that you're seeing that are targeting female hair, that's because long hair can be complicated. Short hair, a lot of people just throw it on real fast. But hair moves uniquely to itself and collides with itself. So lots of reference like we were talking about earlier. But yeah, block it out. Looks good.
Cool. Well, so I reckon we should probably wrap up, even though, I mean, I could gladly talk to you guys for the next couple of hours. We've already run over by almost half hour, but that's pretty much how we like to do it at Maxon. I would like to thank Paul, Ian, and Anna Carolina for being on this show with us. It's so nice to have you guys. It's been so much fun, but also for answering everyone's questions live and for showing it as well. Because I know sometimes we can talk about it and we can kind of like physically say those answers, but for everyone to see how you guys do it and your kind of like workflows and your kind of like processes, it's so much more valuable than just kind of the information itself. So yeah, thanks everyone. I hope you guys have enjoyed being on here with us, and hopefully this won't be the last time that we all get to hang.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And yeah, again too, just to anybody who's new to ZBrush, we have a ton of artists that come on live all the time. So if you're really trying to dive in and ask questions, that's the time to do it. Get in there, follow the follow Maxon, follow the Pixologic YouTube or the ZBrush YouTube channels, and you'll get notified. Go to ZBrush Live, and that's going to tell you the calendar, which artists, because there's tons of different artists from every walk of life. We have stylized characters, realism, jewelry, the list goes on. We have a lot there, so definitely pop on, follow them, because then you can ask those questions. And then the hashtag #AskZBrush is a series we run over at ZBrush. So, if you have a question, you're not sure if something's working right, tweet us at #AskZBrush. We'll get that question, and then when it comes up, we can answer that question in video format, which we have over 500 videos right now specifically dedicated to Ask ZBrush. So if you go over to the YouTube channel, you'll be able to see that, and you'll be able to dive in, and you might have a question that's already been answered. You never know.
Also, shout out
yeah.
to
you go.
Monday. Sorry, just a reminder for the Mondays in June that we're going to be doing focusing on the workflow and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, if you enjoyed our interaction with Anna Carolina, then yeah, Mondays in June we're going to be doing some pretty cool stuff with sort of like a whole range of the Maxon products, starting in ZBrush and sculpting some pretty cool creatures. Not to give too much away. And also all the links that Ian was just talking about, so ZBrush Live and everything, can be found in the chat for you guys to check out. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much to Anna Carolina, Ian, Paul, and also Chad and Darren, and as well Hashi and Michelle. Couldn't do it without you guys. It's been a pleasure. I hope you all have a lovely, rest of your days. I know it's early for some of you, a bit late for me, which is nice. And hopefully we'll get to hang soon.
Awesome. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah. I shared some of Anna's links in the chat as well, so people can go to Anna's information.
Follow.
Perfect. All the links, so you guys have no excuse now. No excuse to not learn ZBrush.
Boop, boop.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.